Hello, hello. How's everybody doing today? This is War Justice here. We're just going to go over some more information and news that I've come across in the past hours here with other content creators and streamers in general, leaking information just for some of the other classes, ascendancy classes. Trying to go over what class is going to be best for you, depending your play style. We do have a few people that have game tested a lot of these classes, and have they seen a lot of the skill trees and the nodes and other skills that are in each class. So we will take a look at those and see what they're looking at for their tier list for each class. So we'll take a look here.
A crossbow wielding mercenary.
Hey guys, great class, and given a crossbow. It's an ammunition based class, which is a brand new playstyle to the game, and basically you can have it's an ammunition based 6. Now this is essentially your classical gunslinger.
Check. Hello everybody, this is War Justice. We're going to give a tier list on what I think will be the best class starting the season for Path of Exile 2. We'll grade them, each class. I'll give you my best guess, what I think is going to be the top tiers and which ones aren't. So hopefully this video will help you make a decision on what's going to be best for your gameplay and style, and just an insight on what classes are going to be best for DPS and resilience, or best overall for speed clearing. So stay tuned and we'll get started here. As well, before we get going, I am doing a Path of Exile 2 early access key giveaway this Saturday, November 30th. So tune into my socials below. We got my Discord in there and Twitch. I'll be streaming on Twitch and giving away a Path of Exile 2 early access key. So check that out, and we'll start that at 1 p.m. Eastern on November 30th, and then we'll end it at 2 p.m. Eastern, announcing the winner right after that. So we'll get rocking here. We'll check out each class, go through them, get a review from one of my buddies here, and see what he's grading it, and then I'll give you my opinion as well here. So we're trying to make the best decision that I feel for myself is going to be best, and which ones are going to be as great. But and then I'll let you know what class I'm going to be starting the season with here.
High damage spell hits deliver even more devastation. The Stormweaver also gets the familiar Shaper of Storms node, which allows all of your damage to shock your enemies, and similarly to POE1, shocked monsters will take more damage from you, and this is one of the most powerful debuffs that you can inflict on them. And on top of that, the Strike Twice passive will allow the shock debuff to stack twice on the target, so as a sorceress you can double its effectiveness, which is absolutely bonkers. And that's not even the craziest part of this class, because the second ascendancy available to the sorcerers looks absolutely game-breaking. The Chronomancer grants you the ability to manipulate time in many useful ways. You can return your character to a few seconds in the past, restoring your health and position similarly to how Echo Ultimate works in League of Legends, and of course you can freeze the time. In the trailer, time freeze duration looked to be about 2.5 seconds and affected all of the enemies in range, but it is yet to be revealed if it can affect bosses and if we can manipulate its duration.
That's a big question. If it can affect bosses, that's a game changer. There's still a lot we don't know about a lot of the classes.
powerful,
we're just trying to make our best assumption.
crowd control that allows you to completely bypass the ordinary rules of combat in Path of Exile 2. The time freeze ability has a cooldown, but fear not, for there is an even crazier ability to combo it with, the time snap. Similarly to Cold Snap from World of Warcraft, this ability resets your cooldowns, which means that you can chain one time stop after another. However, there seems to be diminishing returns. Similarly to how other crowd control debuffs in PoE2 work, the second time stop will have a little bit shorter duration on enemies that were recently affected by it, but the combo potential of Chronomancer seems to be absolutely crazy. Here are a few examples. If you stack sources of increased skill duration, you can use something like the Frost Bomb, which gains more damage the longer its duration. Time freeze the enemies on top of it, and then time snap to reset both cooldowns, and Frost Bomb plus time freeze again. Once the time freeze ends, the Frost Bombs will decimate anything caught in the area. This type of playstyle would be too slow for regular mapping, but it could allow you to fight enemies that are way above your level and do incredibly challenging content that would otherwise be impossible to complete. It is unconfirmed whether the time snap cooldown reset works on all abilities or just the spells, but if it does work on attacks, another possible combo would be to utilize an attack skill with the longest cooldown revealed so far, Hammer of the Gods, which has a 24-second cooldown. The combo would look something like this. You Seismic Cry, Hammer of the Gods, freeze time, and then reset your cooldowns with Time Snap, allowing you to repeat all three abilities again for an equivalent of dropping all of the moons of Jupiter on some random guy's head. And even if Time Snap can only reset the cooldowns of spells, combining it with attacks can make for a very flashy playstyle. I cannot wait to see what the third Ascendancy will be, but judging by the first two, the Sorceress is shaping up to be one of the most powerful classes.
So that's been my video about picking your class. Hope it will help you to have more fun on launch and pick the class that will suit your playstyle. Thank you everybody who participated in that video, and I really appreciate you coming up for it. It was really fun.
It gives you an idea on some of the classes there. Here's another personal opinion. Captain Lance 9. He has kind of breaks everything down each class and his tier list as well.
First and most important decision you need to make for Path of Exile 2. What class are you going to play? And the most important part about picking a class is the ascendancies. That's where the real identity,
that's the bread and butter,
comes from in PoE. It's what ascendancy do you go from based on the class you choose. Now, there is a list of all the ascendancies and the nodes they showcased. I want to say right out the gate, we haven't seen half the nodes on every single ascendancy.
Exactly, so we're only getting half the content to give it an opinion.
Ascendancy, and each ascendancy had anywhere from 8 to like 10 ascendancy points. So we're missing a bigger picture of what could be some really heavy hitter passive points that are just make the class above and beyond good. But my first initial take on the ascendancies is going to be based on the information we know here. Now, looking at the monk, the acolyte of Chayula first, I have to say, I gotta be honest,
I think this one will be the most
I'm going to be
popular.
making a lot of speculation about a lot of these ascendancies. You can tell me why I'm wrong.
I think a lot of people are going monk.
Or why you think I am just out of my mind. But when it comes to these classes, I'm just going to give my first thoughts initially looking at this stuff. And I think this one's going to be bait. And I'll tell you why. Number one is if you're looking down at these two ascendancy points here, Embrace of Darkness and the Grasp of the Void, these two ascendancy points specifically, number one is you give up your spirit in order to get darkness in exchange. I think initially this is just a bad trade. Spirit, from what I can tell, based on the reservation auras we've seen so far, seems like a pretty useful resource. And in PoE1, auras are very, very strong. So initially, the first part of this is you give up a big upside and you trade it for darkness, which is essentially a layer of defense, we'll call it, where you get to absorb a certain amount of damage. This goes from 100 at the baseline, and then you get +5 per level. So at level 100, we'll say 600 total darkness. My thought on this is this nice to have a temporary barrier, but is it worth all your spirit? I don't think it's even close to worth all your spirit because of this right here. Lasts for 10 seconds. When you get hit, the damage is taken from the darkness, and it's reserved for 10 seconds. 10 seconds is a long time in Path of Exile. That's a large amount of time. You could die multiple times within 10 seconds. PoE2 is going to probably play
that's tough
differently than Path of Exile 1, but 10 seconds is still a long time, and I just don't see how this would ever be worth trading your reservations, which are auras, heralds, that sort of thing, trigger skills.
Unless if one of these other passives that they haven't revealed yet.
You can spend an
I mean, it could lower that.
Gain is extra damage
we'll see.
for chaos based on unreserved void, which at 600 darkness, which you might be able to increase this darkness number. So just bear with that. You know, if you can increase it to a larger number, it gets better and better.
See, we only have half of the ascendancy that we know of. So these other nodes that haven't been revealed yet, they could give you more leech. Or it could be, you know, cuts the darkness or reservation in like maybe a couple seconds less to make a big difference.
But it says 1% damage.
But again, I think this is going to be the most popular class everyone's going to decide to go with. It seems like I hear monk everywhere. Everybody's kind of choosing the monk, which route they're going to go. Chayula or maybe the Invoker. I'm not sure. But Invoker honestly looks better of the two, in my opinion. You can control the elements. There's no... It's the speed is there for large AoE speed clearing. I think it's going to be really good. It's strong, a lot of resistance. Defense is good. Chayula, I'm not too sure. It seems like there's a long, you know, kind of debuff in between there. 10 seconds, that's a long time, like he was saying here. So
for 20 on reserve. That is like 30% gain is extra, which is a very strong node while it's unreserved. So it's strong until you get hit, and then all your damage falls off if you take multiple hits in a row and stuff like that. It's something where if you play well, you could benefit and have nice damage, but I'm not so certain that's going to be easy to pull off. I think that's going to be hard to pull off, and you're spending 4 ascendancy points for it, and you're giving up auras, which could be damage nodes, which might make up for the difference in damage of gain 30% versus not gain 30%. So what I'm thinking right now is these first 2 points, they seem kind of risky in my opinion. And then on top of that, looking at the other points, Chayla's Gift, max 10 chaos res. This could be actually kind of decent. Just depends. We don't know what unique items are in the game. If there's something that gives you like Divine Flesh like there is in POE1, which is damage taken as chaos, this could actually be quite strong. But outside that possibility, initially when you start the game, chaos res is probably going to be a bit hard to get. I don't think those unique items are going to be readily available. And initially, this is not going to be a very strong point right out the gate because it's 10 max res for chaos res, and you're probably not even going to have chaos res by the time you're clicking your first ascendancy. It's something that late game might be good, but who knows. And then other nodes here, Waken and Dream, it's a on-kill effect that gives you some extra power while mapping. Might feel good for a mapping style build, but it's going to do nothing for you in a boss fight. And that's rough, I think, especially when considering a lot of the end game super loot and pushing your Atlas further is about killing these bosses. So I don't know, that has question marks for me. And then Mana Leech applies to your ES Leech. This might be decent, but I gotta be honest, from what I see of the passive tree, I see solutions to mana that aren't that hard to get, that don't cost your entire ascendancy. On top of the fact, this is your Mana Leech applying to your ES Leech. What that means is if your Mana Leech is based on your mana pool's kind of hard to scale to a big number unless you're like literally an Archmage build, which they haven't really showcased any Archmage support too much yet. So I don't even know if that's going to be in the early access, like stuff to support scaling a bunch of mana and benefiting it. It might exist in unique items. We don't know. But the point is, normally you're not scaling that high of a mana number, which means your leech is based on like the total amount of mana or the resource you have that you're leeching, which means you might not really end up getting that much leech per second from this node, which then makes this node not necessarily that strong. That's the thought I get when looking at these things. So overall, I think this is going to be bait. I could be completely wrong, but that's my opinion. Next up, we have the Blood Mage. I love this sort of archetype of stack big life, get damage, cast spells, use thaumaturgy type magic. It sounds cool. It's thematically cool, but I gotta be honest, I would think it'd be a big risk to start this class. And the main reason is your first ascendancy point, the first point you have to pick, is kind of just a downside. Usually when you're trying to progress through a game, especially when you don't really know what's good or bad, if your first ascendancy point is just like not upside, that's going to be kind of rough in terms of making sure your character can progress to getting your second ascendancy point. In terms of like, normally you get that first ascendancy point and it starts making the rest of the campaign easier as you go. I would be a little bit hesitant to start this build just because of that. The other reason is a lot of these points I see are gear dependent. For example, Gore Spike, this is going to greatly depend how good your gear is. If your gear is good, then this will probably be a very strong node. But initially, on a fresh league start, no one knows what they're doing. Your gear's probably not going to be that great. So even this node is going to be a bit weak early on, I would think, until you start getting more life on your gear. I think afterwards, more gear progressed as a second character, this node probably could hard carry. But before that point, I'd be a little bit worried about that. Another thing I want to point out, Leech might be good. Don't really know. I don't really know what they're doing with Leech. No one ever knows what they're doing with Leech. They're changing it. Who freaking knows? So that's a question mark. But outside of that, Crimson Power, if you go down here, just want to point this out. This says specifically body armor. I believe that means just your chest piece, not your gloves, not your boots, not your helmet, not your shield. If you're familiar with Crimson Power from like the Warlock Ascendancy back in POE1 Affliction League, it applied to all those gear slots, whereas this is just your body armor, which is quite a bit weaker. Still will be nice for scaling life, but you have to remember, we don't have percent life on the tree as far as we know, which means scaling that extra flat, you're going to get less out of it, if that makes sense. So keep that in mind. I think there's some limitations here. I think this would be a risky first Ascendancy pick. Next up, we have the Sorceress,
Blood
the
Mage,
Chronomancer, and this
too
is going to
risky.
be something that I'm going to talk about throughout a lot of these Ascendancies. They showcase
Not the
Ascendancy
best.
points that give a skill. There are
Chronomancer.
some pretty big unknowns in terms of how much this does for you, the player. Now, I'm going to start off with something we do know, which is Temporal Rift in POE1. This, to me, if it's like it is in POE1, I don't know, man. Temporal Rift feels pretty baitish in POE1, but maybe there's some scenarios where you can make it work. Granted, it feels cool to like warp around, warp backwards, but a lot of times in POE1, you just want to keep moving forward. In POE2, the gameplay is going to be different, and maybe that's a big part of this feeling better, is where you can warp out of a dangerous situation. When I played the playtest in June or whatever it was, getting out of dangerous situations, being able to warp backwards would have been quite useful. And it's not a reservation, so maybe this end up might feeling good. Time freeze looks really freaking cool, so you have to go through the Temporal Rift to get the time freeze. That just seems freaking neat. Pausing all the enemies around you and getting to get free hits. That seems like a strong power, just in terms of free damage when you aren't going to be receiving damage or get out of dangerous situations. So I don't really know, but it looks cool, and I freaking love the artwork of this. I am so curious about what these other Ascendancy points. It's one of those things where it's like, I'd be curious about this. Maybe I know
be good.
the
This one could be good because we only know what 3 out of the other 5 are for these nodes. So they could be more damage, could be more defense. It's more time rift control. It could be good, but as far as we see, just with these 3, I wouldn't classify this as an S tier build starting off the season.
other Sorcerer Ascendancy looks good. I can have that as a safe plan. But when I check the Ascendancies, when I see the 2 options show up, you can look through all these other points and then make your decision more educated from there. And then Time Snap, resetting cooldowns, that seems pretty strong. I wonder how often we'll get that, but that could be quite powerful, especially with a lot of cooldown-based abilities, which are really powerful. For example, this is something you might not think, but they showcased the Hammer of the Gods skill, which had like some 20-second cooldown, but hit like 20 times harder than all your other abilities. Something like that, if this reset cooldown thing has any sort of like decent time frame which you get to use it, could be really powerful. You could be running around as a sorceress that's actually a 2-handed mace build, using that time snap to reshot and get another shot at a really big cooldown skill. And for all we know, there's other very powerful spellcaster abilities that are on a big cooldown that you get to reset and redo, and maybe you get to 2-shot an enemy or 2-shot a boss or something. That could be potentially very strong. So this one's just super interesting, but also question mark. How useful are these going to be? How are these skills going to feel in actual combat? It's something I'm going to have to, you have to get in and play and find out. This one just seems really interesting to me, but I don't know if I'd be risky or ballsy enough to try it on a start of the early access. Up next, Ranger Deadeye. Extra Proj, probably going to be quite strong with some abilities. There's probably going to be some abuse case where that Extra Proj becomes quite powerful. Outside of that, Tailwind move faster, accuracy, penalty at distance. I don't think accuracy is that hard to solve, but maybe it's harder in POE2. I don't know. This node I think is probably going to be weak. This node is probably going to be decently strong or worth getting. Gathering Winds during the showcase when they showed this, you did seem like you were moving quite fast with this, and it's probably going to be an ability for a lot of meta speed mappers. If that ends up becoming a thing in POE2, which I think it will, abilities that give you movement speed are going to be quite king, and this gives you movement speed. We don't know how much it stacks up to, but in the showcase, the character seemed quite a bit faster than all the other characters we've seen when we've looked at the showcases they've done. So this node might be pretty meta, especially considering bows really can achieve, you know, screen wide shootout, hit enemies. I think it's going to be a speed clear thing. We'll see how it turns out if the bows have enough punch behind them to start one-shotting a lot of like normal mobs and stuff.
I do think the Ranger will be like an A tier build. We only know 3 out of the other, 5 nodes here. So it's kind of hard to judge, but I think it's going to, like he said, going to be a good AoE speed clear build. So it's good if you, you're looking to start a build that can do a lot of AoE very fast, clearing breaches.
If
would be good.
The bows have enough about maybe
risk. Look at the Infernalist.
I think it's a risk for me because most likely a lot of these.
I think this is going to be an S tier.
Might just be minion nodes.
Very good build to start the season with.
Spirits in the
I'll be right back.
Here. And for example, this Loyal Hellhound is a minion thing. The Witch class was the class they showcased as being a minion class, and the Blood Mage, all those nodes have nothing to do with minions. So this node has a thing to do with minions, which means if I want to play this and I want to be like a self-caster, I don't like minion builds that much per se. It is a bit of a risk there, but I'll point this out. Loyal Hellhound looks exactly like Sentinel of Radiance in POE1, and it's a very strong skill. It might not be as strong in terms of like full clearing enemies around it in a big radius, but as an extra minion that's kind of beefed up and juicy and gives you 20% DR, I don't think you can really go wrong with this node, especially if it's a 2-point. That's a very strong early 2-point in my opinion. Same thing with Demonic Possession. This C gives me a Berserker vibe. In POE1, Berserker has a node that gives 40% more damage, but makes you take increased damage. When they were talking about it, they were saying you start gaining speed and damage over time, but you start taking increased damage over time as well. Kind of like high risk, high reward. I think it could be fun. When I was looking at the gameplay, it looked like the demon form was quite a bit faster mobility wise. So I would be really tempted to play this Ascendancy literally just for this right now, because transformations, they just seem really cool to me. Outside of that, Pyromantic Pact, this is an initial point. It will solve your mana, but then it makes you take a lot of self damage. I think this is going to be hard to pull off early in terms of sustaining the self damage, but for all we know, there might be a good amount of damage recoup on the tree. There might be things where you can use it to proc cast some damage setups. There might be some interactions like that where this ends up being quite powerful in terms of making other things happen. In POE1, there's a lot of instances where you can use self damage to your advantage significantly, and this might fall under that category while solving your mana. I think this has probably some potential and looks pretty cool. And the node after it, Bringer of Flame, it's hard to quantify what this means because there's no like numbers next to it, but I'm sure after playtesting we can kind of figure out what this actually means in terms of how much it affects your like ignite damage. But it could be just the play. If you want to make an ignite build, this might just be the strongest node to go for. It's the first Ascendancy we've seen that has anything to do with like fire magic thematically, so my guess is it's probably gonna
so yeah, I definitely think this is going to be an S tier build. It's one of the choices that I'm heavily swaying to start the season with. I think Infernalist will be very powerful, as you can cast a skill to go in demon form, which depletes your life, but as the life depletes, you're going to stack more damage. It's going to make you very strong, very tanky, but does deplete your health, so you can only stay in this form for X amount of time before you got to go back to your form, normal form, out of the demon form, and then regenerate your health back. So if there's going to be some sort of passive, maybe we don't know what the other big nodes are going to be. It could be something to do with leeching life to keep up your demon form, so you can stay in it maybe a little longer. But the other thing that's going to be very strong is you can summon an Infernal Hound, which is going to give, it takes 20% damage from hits is taken from your Hellhound life before you. So your Hellhound's going to take 20% more damage before you're going to take the damage, which is pretty good.
be a good pick if you want to play an Ignite style build that you might need to go for this node. So this I'm excited about. It's probably the Ascendancy I'm going to play on launch unless we get more teaser information about other Ascendancy nodes, but we'll see. Next up, the Monk Invoker. This thing gives me Warden vibes. If you played Warden in POE1, Unbound Avatar, big damage boost whenever you click it after stacking up a bunch of elemental ailments on enemies. You're just going to be a whirlwind of elemental damage, and they have other nodes to support that. This seems like it probably could be just generically good. It's a big, I don't know, depends on other nodes, but if you want to play melee, elemental, a lot of the skills they showcased with Monk looked really cool. My big caveat is I kind of wonder if Monk's going to be squishy. And then they have Meditate, a node that doubles your ES, but you have to channel it. It's a big, it depends. How fast is that skill? Can you get cast speed that, like, can you support it with faster casting and then cast the Meditate real quick and then boom, you're up to double ES? This might just be broken if it's something you can start using in the middle of boss fights in terms of like certain mechanics and just boost your EHP up a bunch. So I think there's strong possibility for this to just be broken if you can make the cast speed or cast time of this Meditate skill quicker and it doesn't have too long of a cooldown, but we don't really know what that looks like. We'll see it when it comes to launch, but there's potential for this class. I will say this thing, this is the first example of a trigger elemental skill on hit. We have another one of those examples on the other sorcerer's class that we'll get to soon. This thing I have some questions about. Number one is, does it scale with your character level? I would imagine it did. And number two is, from what the information I heard when I was like watching the content reveal and stuff, and the question Ziggy D asked was, basically, are these skills supportable? And as far as I know, it sounded like you can support these skills. One of the things about skills being locked into an Ascendancy, like Sentinel of Radiance and POE1, is you couldn't add support gems to really like invest into that skill to make it do good damage. But it sounds like that is going to be not the case of POE2, where you can actually put supports on it and you might be able to make these sorts of things, these trigger skills that are linked to these Ascendancies, actually quite strong. So that's one of those things where it's like, that could be pretty cool. If you've ever played cast and crit builds, they're a lot of fun in terms of a lot of cool effects going on, and becoming the elemental staff wielding monk that's just a whirlwind of blizzards and thunder. I think that could be an interesting time, but it's a big, I don't freaking know. One of the things I'm so excited about PoE, like the launch, is they're keeping the information,
keeping it under wraps
from us. They're not giving us the full passive tree. They're not
which
giving
is
us all
good.
these Ascendancy nodes. I'm hoping that we still get some teasers throughout, but not the full picture. So that way, when we're all going on in,
I want to go in blind. I want a little bit of an idea, which we do have,
early access,
but I don't want
just a big, I don't know what's gonna
every
happen.
node
Everybody's
leaked.
finding cool stuff as they're leveling up, getting their Ascendancy points and whatnot. I'm just really pumped for it. Mercenary, Gemling Legionnaire. This dude,
I don't know about this one.
I think
Maybe like an A
but
tier.
it's again packed with I don't knows. Quality on skill gems. We don't know how good quality is on skill gems.
See.
I haven't really seen any quality effects on skill gems. Who knows what that means? In PoE1, quality can be, with 20 quality, that can be up to like 10% or 20% more damage on most skills. In this game, who knows? That affects your auras, reservations,
or damage.
all the active skill gems could be really strong. 3 additional gem skill slots. This I think is overkill. I could be wrong, but I'm just thinking about how many skill gems and how many sockets they're giving us already. This just seems like overkill. Like, in order to support the node behind it, which gives a ton of max res, which is very strong max res, unless it's really common in PoE2, if it's a hard resource to get, this is a ton of defensive power for elemental damage. And the thing is, I would almost see myself using this node just to socket in random support gems. Not even stuff I'm going to use, but literally just to fulfill getting a certain amount of max res to get like, oh, I need 3 more blue to get 1 more max cold res, stuff like that. Another thing I want to note is keep note that the blue relates to cold res now and green relates to lightning. This is a bit of a weird switch, or not, I don't know about a weird switch, but in PoE1, a lot of blue stuff relates to cold, red stuff relates to fire, green stuff relates to lightning, and it seems like they're keeping that thematics there, which I kind of like that system. So there's probably going to be more stuff like this where certain colors represent or are related to certain elements a lot of the time. And then, yeah, attribute requirements being fulfilled by your gems. This, at first, I thought, I literally read this as attribute requirements satisfied by highest attribute, and I skipped over the gem part, and I just thought to myself, Giant's Bane or Giant's Hand or what is the I need a freaking I don't know what it's called. But anyways, there's a keystone that lets you wield two dual wields. But yeah, that wouldn't satisfy the two-hand requirements. But I would imagine that keystone with some interesting skill setups could be nice. But this thing overall, it just allows you to have a lot of different variants in your support gems is what I think it does in terms of the fact you can invest into a lot of strength, maybe go two-handed and then have still a lot of different colors of gems. This is something that might be necessary in order to fulfill this node here. I don't know. This one's a big question mark. This is not something I think I would start. It seems really risky to me, but that's okay because the other mercenary I think is just generically strong. The Ranger Pathfinder, Flask
That's
Songs,
the Witch Hunter
skills, Concoction skills. Who knows how strong these are? In POE1, the Flask skills are kind of a meme, except for Poisonous Concoction, which is actually really strong. So this has a wide range of possibilities. Could be good, could be bad. I don't freaking know. And then after that, the not being slowed down nodes will probably feel decent. I would imagine this seems like it might just be slower than the Deadeye. Like the Deadeye just seemed fast, whereas this is like you get less of a penalty. So I feel like if you're going for speed, you're probably just going to pick Deadeye. But outside of that, poisons, poison prolif, and double poisons. This is about 30% more poison damage if you factor in the less duration. This could just be strong if you want to play a poison build. Don't really know what to expect from poison in POE2. In POE1, it's really good. In POE2, no freaking clue. I don't know how much mechanically it's changing in terms of if it's something that has well, clearly it seems like it has a limited number of stacks because this is allowing you to double the stacks, or at least maybe it allows you to hit 2 poisons at once. I'm not 100% sure on the wording on that. But anyways, there's some question marks.
Good poison build.
Next up, the Sorceress Stormweaver. This is the spell counterpart, I think, to the Monk Cast on Crit build, if you wanted to be a spell Cast on Crit build, because it has a node that says trigger this on crit with spells. So you have the one that's a melee hits.
I think Sorcerer is going to be very strong.
Trigger on it.
Be an S tier for sure.
I think could be quite strong, and
but might be a little squishy, kind of like a glass cannon.
Are these skills they're triggering?
As long as there's a way to
prove that yes, we can support them.
Give yourself more defense.
It seems like there's some decent possibilities there, but I don't really know how hard it is to get the crit chance, how consistent these sort of triggers are going to be. My guess though is it's probably going to be a lot of fun. You know, you're running around, you're casting like, I don't know, ball lightning, and then you're triggering these elemental storms because ball lightning hits a ton of times and then it procs crits and stuff like that. It could end up being quite strong. It's really just dependent on what kind of cooldowns come with these skills, how hard they hit, and that's just like, we won't know until we play it.
Biggest thing is going to be the cooldowns for sure.
And then being able to shock an enemy twice, and
again, as we don't know, we only know 3 of them so far. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 more. So I mean, that could be cooldowns. Could be some more buffs to damage when you're using a certain element. It's hard to know closer to, I'm sure.
Shock chance. This is I don't know. I don't know what they're doing to shock. In POE1, shock can make enemies take 50% increased damage. In POE2, I don't know. There's been a lot of different patches they've had and a lot of different showcases. And it's one of those things where until we get in the game and we go click on the tooltip for shock, we're not going to know 100% what that looks like or how hard it is to inflict a good shock on a boss. But if it's like POE1 where it's a 50% damage increase, this is a very, very strong node if you can proc those shocks effectively, depending on how good your character is. It's one of those nodes where if your character's good and you already hit hard and you already shock an enemy good, then maybe this is really good because you can shock them twice and you can do it. Or if you don't hit the enemy very hard and you're not proccing the shock very consistently, then it's you click the node and it doesn't do much for you because you're not really getting that shock on there. I don't really know. I don't really know how they're changing ailments 100%.
See, one thing I think this class is very safe. It's going to be an S tier for sure. Controlling the elements, we know the damage is going to be there. It's going to be probably the fastest AoE speed clearing build with how much radius you can project with lightning. But the problem is we don't know if there's going to be any kind of armor shield or anything for the sorceress. I'm hoping one of these nodes will grant you maybe some sort of extra defense or shield, maybe like a flame shield or some kind of shield. Maybe this one does. It looks like it has some sort of bubble or some sort of protection around you. So maybe that's, we can only hope that's some more defense or armor.
And that's just what it is. Warrior Titan. this just seems like the go-to play if you want to be a slam character.
And one more thing, I'm going to just stop real quick here. From what I found with Path of Exile, it's a lot different than Diablo 4. In Diablo 4, if that's where you're coming from, a lot of the damage is, a lot of the builds are spec'd into damage, I should say. That's why we're always seeing crazy numbers on Diablo. But with Path of Exile, it's more focused on defense and resistances, and don't spec everything into damage, because ultimately that'll be the thing that kills you. Because if you have no defense in your shields or your armor, resistances, anything like that, then you're going to have a hard time in this game. So it's about having that fine balance between damage and defense. So that'll be the number one thing. I'm going to personally be making sure I'm hitting the caps on my elemental resistances and armor, and of course your energy shield is going to be a big one for survivability on any of the classes. So
it has the chance to proc extra aftershocks, which is just extra damage. Crushing blows, allowing you to stun lock bosses. Stun in the playtest seemed very strong to get advantage of being able to deal extra damage to bosses while they're not moving or doing attacks that you have to dodge. And then just an outright big damage multiplier when you stun the enemy. Just seems like it probably is pretty strong. You stun lock the boss, and then you...
This is a very safe build for anybody new coming to Path of Exile in general. This one's going to have a lot of survivability. You're going to have a lot of damage. I don't think I'm going to classify it as an S tier, though. It's going to probably be an A, because it's very slow and clanky, but it does pack a lot of punch with the damage. We found out one more of the nodes is going to be a 20% increase to life. So that'd be the fourth one here. So that is, I believe it's this one here. It's 20% more increased life to your health life. That will be in the bottom left. So you'll have a lot of survivability. You're going to be tanky, but very slow. So I would classify this more of like a good AoE with Earthbreaker, and then very good against bosses. So overall, it's still a good build for anyone new Path of Exile that wants a little bit of forgiveness.
Start hitting the boss harder. Probably going to feel pretty girthy while going through the maps, just stunning most of your enemies. And then when you get to bosses, being able to stun lock bosses, I think is going to be quite strong. If you're looking for two-hand, girthy, meaty mace gameplay, I think this is probably the go-to answer, at least based on these early nodes of what we're seeing. After that, the Warrior Warbringer. The War Cry explodes corpses. This will feel good in like maps. Like say you kill like 10 normal monsters around a rare, and then you can proc this. Maybe you can one-shot the rare by blowing up the corpses. That seems like it could be good for helping your clear. Not going to be do much in boss fights unless the boss spawns a bunch of monsters. Or if there's a Desecrate skill where you can spawn corpses. For all we know, this might be DD for Path of Exile 2, where you proc Desecrate and then you go Warcry, proc Desecrate, Warcry. That might be a build in POE2 with this thing. We don't really know. And then ignore Warcry cooldowns. That will just support this if that is a build, which could be an interesting build in and of itself. But as for the relation to the other things, I'm not too sure, because I don't know exactly all the Warcry benefits. Like in POE1, there's a lot of multipliers.
This build's like a 50-50. I don't think it's going to be an S tier, but
there's going to be certain cries. Like maybe there's a seismic cry in POE2 where you get AoE. Or
I think you're going to be better off with Titan, though, because that's just going to be a better overall build than Warbringer. You have to rely on summoning a totem to do your damage. Not a big fan of that. We don't know how the UI is going to be with some of these companion, like you're going to spawn in. Didn't look that great during the presentation when he spawned in like basically a monkey. He was just kind of running off into the sunset. He wasn't even attacking enemies. So I'm sure that's something they'll fix, but I just don't know how great it's going to be right off the start for your first character on launch. If you're wanting a strong overall build, a safe build, definitely go Titan. And if you want to experiment on other builds, the Monk Invoker looks very nice. It's an S tier, I believe, in my opinion, and the Sorceress is going to be very strong. Look at a couple of the other ones here.
Multiplier for your next hits. Could be strong. We'll see how that turns out.
Mercenary Witch Hunter is going to be very strong. Your first hit on a boss depletes 30% of the boss's health on first strike. And you can do very large AoE damages with your cluster bombs. That's going to be a very good build as well.
And then on top of that, I believe what we're seeing is the ascendancy for the Totem Enjoyer. If you want to do melee totems and you want to go for the Ancestral Bond Keystone that was showcased, that is like you reserve 50 spirit per totem. That seems like it could be a build in of itself. I'm not going to be playing that personally because I don't like totems, but I gotta be honest, it looks kind of cool. Summon totems, and then you get these ancestral spirits along with them that go like it's like a minion totem hybrid. And it seems like it could be interesting. Seems like it could be cool. But honestly, I don't friggin' know. We have to friggin' play it to actually get an idea. And that's what I'm gonna be saying for all these things. A lot of these things. I have my opinions about what I think is gonna be strong. Like personally, I could see this character being strong based on
Infernalist will be very strong. It's gonna be S tier for sure.
Generic benefits that work out. Whereas when I look at something like this, I think it'll be fast. Will it do damage? Will it be tanky enough? If you're failing maps, does it matter that you're fast? I don't know. But yeah. Anyways, Totem Guy, if you want to play Totem builds, I think this is probably going to be the way to go. Maybe. Don't know how far away Ancestral Bond is from the Marauder start on the tree. You could probably scan through the clips of where they show the trees, but we'll see what that looks like. And then last but not least, Mercenary. This essentially just seems generically strong to me. The Judge, Jury, and Executioner node, it says
this one's going to be enemies,
but when they
unreal
showcased it,
against bosses.
Jonathan specifically said up to 30%. So this is probably a situation where it ranges from like 10 to 30% of the boss's initial HP pool. Something like that, which would mean this is a damage multiplier of somewhere in the range of 20 to 30% more damage. It's just a very strong generic node. In the fight they showcased, he shot the boss once, did 260,000 damage, and then his following hits were like 2k damage, 2k damage, 2k damage. So this first hit did the effort of 100 hits on the initial start of a fight, which means very strong initial node, I think. If every single enemy you get a decimating strike on for the first hit, very strong. Just a big damage multiplier, really. And there's not a lot of damage multipliers on these ascendancy nodes. We're seeing a lot of like thematic, unique things. We're not seeing a lot of damage multipliers necessarily. And to me, this is a fairly sizable damage multiplier. And for all we know, the node behind it is like Slayer call. So like maybe you have a reverse call at the start and a call at the end or something like that. Who freaking knows? But big damage multiplier for this point. This point, you get to trade evasion armor for elemental, like just an elemental barrier. In POE1, there's an example of this sort of thing on the Elementalist, and it's decently strong, but losing armor and evasion, I don't know if that's going to be worth it. Depends how useful those layers of defense are. Depends how strong this is. When we get in game and get numbers, that'll give you a better idea, but
always about numbers.
And I'm not sure they...
The only thing, if you are deciding to go Mercenary Witch Hunter, I know from a lot of footage I've seen, like, and other creators have said when they were at the event testing this build that the first half of this gameplay with this character is going to be very rough, sluggish, just not that powerful until you start actually getting into the ascendancy nodes. So that's why halfway through the campaign, we start doing our trials to start working towards our ascendancy nodes. When you start unlocking these nodes, then that's when you're going to really start to see this this class start to shine, and it will have multiple projectiles with your grenades, explosions everywhere, massive radius, big damage numbers against bosses and other packs of enemies. So if you are playing this build, it's going to be a little bit slow in the beginning, but it will pick up as soon as you start doing your trials halfway through the campaign.
They're going to leave us to the discovery of it. This one is a maybe it's good, maybe it's not situation. Zealous Inquisition. This is just, I think, generically good. One of the best things you can do in PoE for map clear and being able to clear up packs is being able to have some source of explode. And this is 10% explode, and it's a big, sizable explosion. If you watch the clip when they're showcasing this, it's a fairly big radius. Like if there's a pack of monsters, one monster dies, the entire pack is getting hit by that explosion. So if you scale any amount of AoE, this could be a map clearing, very feels good situation, similar to how people leverage Chieftain explosion out of their mind in PoE1. And then after that, Witchbane, I just don't know what this means. I gotta be honest with you. I have no idea what this means. The concentration thing, this makes no sense to me. Maybe this is good. I don't know. I think if you're going mercenary, this is going to be a very obvious, generically good start. And then maybe later on with gearing, you could make the Gemling guy work better and respect to him. But that's my thoughts right now. Mercenary Witch Hunter seems very good. I'm going to say, I'll give you guys a little ranking for all these ascendancies as I go through them, is how good I think they're going to be. And we'll see what they actually are on League Star. I think Mercenary is going to be an S tier in terms of that class. It seems very good. A lot of generic
damage.
I agree.
S tier for sure.
Can't go wrong there. This class is a totem build, so it instantly gets F tier because I'm a hater. Also, a DD build as far as
I would say like maybe a B.
I mentioned I'm a hater.
B tier. I wouldn't give it an F.
Okay, I like Warcry's okay-ish, but I'm a hater for totems. This will probably be good if you're a totem player. Maybe it's a B tier. I don't know. I'm just a hater though. Slam build seems like it'll be good. This will be a solid A tier. Be reliable, strong slams, meaty slams, stun the enemy, beat enemy up with big hammer. That's
pretty typical.
Sorcerer Stormweaver.
I think this would be
for
an
elemental
S.
caster, this is probably going to be the way to go. I think this is going to be, for spell builds, this is probably going to be maybe the best spell caster you can do out of all the options. So I'm going to say this is an S tier option. Ranger, Pathfinder, I think this is going to be bad. I have no faith in the concoction skills actually being good. Poison seems like it. Oh, it really just depends how good poison is. If poison's good, Pathfinder's good. If poison's bad, I don't know if anything could save Pathfinder, because the movement speed stuff, the getting immune to slows things, I mean, that stuff might end up feeling decent, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to be worth it. I'm a little bit skeptical of Pathfinder. Mercenary, Gemling Legionnaire, I think this is going to be a ascendancy that scales with gear type of thing, which means it's going to be bad on League Start. Like on League Start, it's going to be maybe a D choice, but on late game, it might be an A choice, might be an S choice, but early game, it seems like a risk, in my opinion. Monk Invoker, this seems like it'll just be a solid elemental damage build.
I think it'd be an S tier.
You can scale the cast speed on this skill. I think it's going to be an S tier, very strong build. If you can't scale the cast time and this is hard to pull off in the middle of a boss fight, then I think it's probably going to be more of a glass cannon situation. So this node, I think, is a big contingent factor on whether or not you can make this character tanky or not. We'll see how that goes. Witch, Infernalist, this is what I'm going to start. It's definitely going to be S tier. I'm not coping. It's definitely not going to be a minion build. There's going to be other stuff that's totally useful for a spellcaster ES build. I'm 100% confident. I'm definitely not going to end up regretting this.
Most likely these are other like minion summoning, because this is ideally a minion summoning build. Basically dealing a lot of flame damage. You have your Hellhound that's going to take a lot of your damage for you. Then you can transform into a demon, giving you lots of damage. Then your health depletes, so that scales on how much damage you can do. The less health you have, the more damage you're going to do. Which it's pretty cool.
This choice, Ranger Deadeye, it's probably going to be very good in terms of like, you're going to get to a point where you have a good bow, you shoot the enemy first. Even if you are used to the 6 portal defense, I think there's going to be situations where you can still get away with being a high damage dealer that shoots enemies from far away and just speed map clears. I think this will probably be strong in POE1 in terms of like a trade league environment where it's valuable to get through maps faster. And this character just is one of the only ascendancies that clearly has a speed enhancement that's very strong. Sorceress, Chronomancer. I want this to be good so badly. It looks so cool. The artwork looks cool. I am going to cope that this is going to... No, it's probably going to be bad. I think I'm going to put it... I'm going to say C. I'm going to say C tier for the Chronomancer.
You can't really say it's going to be that bad. It could be like an A. I mean, we still have like 5 other nodes that we don't even know what it does. He's just speculating solely on the 3 that he knows, that you can control time. Rewind time, you get your mana and your health back, your skills reset. So maybe like these other ones, maybe it's like a damage amplifier, maybe it's more cooldown. It's kind of hard to know, but I think it'll be a decent build. I don't know about a S tier or anything, maybe like B or A.
I don't know. The
looks fun though.
Thing with cooldowns could be really strong. but I don't know. It really is contingent on what the other nodes are. You need stuff that you can scale, and there's not a lot, or at least I believe you need stuff that you can scale, and there's not a lot of stuff that scales outside of this node about getting basically a second shot at a cooldown. So I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical of that one. This, I think, is going to be bait early on until you get some gear to benefit, and then it could scale a lot better. I wouldn't want to league start this. I'd say maybe it's a D choice to start with, and I think Acolyte Chamberlain, I think this is it's going to be. I have no faith in this one. All right, that's my quick and dirty opinion of the Ascendancies and the rundown of what I think of each of the Ascendancy nodes. You can give me your opinion, and I think
problem is with this one, a lot of people I think are very fascinated with the Sith-looking electrocution, the lightning coming out of the hands, and it just looked nice and fancy during the reveal gameplay. Really doesn't have that much to offer. It's going to probably be a fast build, but it's going to be very squishy. I'm very reluctant on this one. This was one I originally thought would be pretty cool, but I think if you want to go Monk, Invoker is going to be the better option. It's going to be more versatile, more damage. It's just something to watch out for. If you're starting your season league with this guy, I'm not too sure it'll be the right choice until we know more. I mean, there's only 3 other nodes and we already know pretty much all of it. Don't think it's going to be that great. Mana Leech. Leeching isn't going to be as good as it was in Path of Exile 1. So essentially we got our S tier classes that I have myself was Monk Invoker. That's going to be an S tier for sure. Downside could be squishy but strong if you get instant meditation on bosses. It's all based on meditation. I think it could be very strong. Depends on recharge of skills. I think Sork Stormweaver is going to be an S tier, but it could be a glass cannon, but very strong as long as one of the other nodes has some sort of defense to it. Mercenary Witch Hunter is going to be like a very good build. I think an S plus, it has basically everything to it. I know it doesn't look that appealing for if you don't really like crossbows or bow build style classes, but I think with bosses and big packs of enemies, it's going to be very strong. Your first initial hit on a boss takes away instantly 30% of the boss's life. So that's huge. Again, it's going to be very slow at the beginning until you start getting into your ascendancy of the Witch Hunter, which is going to be halfway through the campaign. You'll start your trials. You'll start working towards your ascendancy, and then the Witch Hunter ascendancy skills are going to really start to shine for that build. So if you hang in there with that build, about halfway through the campaign, you'll start to really see a difference in the mechanics of the Witch Hunter. I think that's going to be a very good build for people to start off with. Same with Witch Infernalist. That's going to be an S tier, I think, in my opinion. Very strong ways to keep spirit up from summoning, for summoning. If you get more spirit, you can keep the summoning up. You have your Hellhound. That's going to take a lot of damage for you. And then when you're basically in the possession of the demon form, which we'll go back here, the more life you lose, it's going to upscale the amount of damage you're going to do. So that's going to be very strong, I think. So you have your demon form, you have your life. It's going to deplete your life, but you're just going to get a lot of damage buffs from that. So as long as you don't stay in the demonic form for too long, you can probably just keep, I don't know what the cooldown is going to be on it, but you can just keep, go back to your normal form and go back into the demon form. As long as your health, maybe you can have some sort of leeching to leech health. So you can kind of keep the duration of that up maybe. Summoning the Hound is going to be huge for you though. 20% damage from hits is taken from your Hellhound before it actually takes your own. Bringer of Flame, Not, low Infernal Flame. All damage from you and your minions contribute to ignite chance and magnitude. So I think that's going to be another great build. So those are kind of like my top 4 builds. That was the Monk Invoker, Sork Stormweaver, Mercenary Witch Hunter, and Witch Infernalist. I think those are going to be the top 4 to watch out for. That's just my own personal opinion, and from what I've heard from others and other content creators and a lot of their videos I've seen of their gameplays of the build. They got to test them out, so they got an idea of what it is. But again, they only played a little bit of the campaign, so they didn't get to fully submerge themselves playing the game to actually use a lot of these nodes in the Ascendancy. So it's all speculation, but a lot of these other builds could be good. Just hard to really know until we see all of the nodes. But I think those are going to be the safe ones to choose right off the start there. As well, the Warrior Titan, I would say that's a very safe one as well. I wouldn't classify it maybe as an S tier, but it's going to be definitely an A+. Good overall build. Here's some game footage as well of a Sorceress and a Mercenary together. So if you're running in a group of, a party of 2, 3, the enemies are going to scale higher in damage and life as you're playing with more people. So, but it just gives you an idea here of these 2 builds.
Fragmentation rounds, it's just
or classes.
Just a default shot.
I think Mercenary is going to be very good though, guys.
Play a little bit here.
That'll be a safe bet to choose. Warrior Titan.
So you get a basic shot, which is right there, my basic bolt. The big thing about the Mercenary is he has multiple skills that have ammo, and they all have their individual magazines that you have to switch between them and reload them. I'm sure there's plenty of ways, and I know on the passive tree, we have seen that there are ways to save bullets when you're shooting. Maybe the big thing that I would like, I don't know if that's in the game already, is the ability, you can see that the aim is a little, the name locking with the aiming is a little awkward. The thing that I noticed, and I'll talk about like one of the cons already, with the Mercenary for me, was I had to switch between things and reload. And with that reload time, like when you're fighting like a certain set of monsters, right? Or like one pack of monsters, you can empty both magazines, but then the time to switch between them and then
see how the beginning with the Mercenary, it's just a little slow.
At least early on, like I've seen
it's going to be a little ruggish, but as you start getting into your Ascendancy for the Witch Hunter, it's going to be very strong.
Big pain point for me was
you got to bear through it.
Every character starts weak, right? But
you can really start to see it really do well.
You're just gonna stick to your one, right? Because switching between them, waiting for the reload again, switching back, like that's just very inefficient. But this is the gameplay. He walks around and shoots. You got your fragmentation rounds. That is your AOE. I did find the AOE, at least early on, not very effective. It has a little bit of a built-in pierce there. I skipped that, so I killed him. I didn't get any loot from him. The key here is I want to show you guys the early experience with the Mercenary, and maybe this will get tweaked a little bit by the time that December 6th happens. And I kind of push it a little bit irresponsibly here. I purposely bring a lot of monsters because one of my favorite things in RPGs, I'm a OG World of Warcraft mage type.
Taking some hard hits there.
I just want to group up a bunch of monsters and then cast Blizzard or whatever and blow everything up. And then you can see kind of. Also, I did get a cold skill right here, so I got a cold shot. I'm trying to freeze them, trying to like shatter them, do some AOE, and just trying to demonstrate here what the what the experience is with these early skills. At least what you're gonna expect. No, like I said, I'm not trying to glaze up.
This is basically right at the start of the game, so your character is not going to be amazing right off the rip. Like I said, he'll really start to do well when you
pack of monsters there, and then
when you basically get into his ascendancy to become a witch hunter, then he'll be very strong. He'll do lots of AOE with all the grenades basically going off in a large radius, and then you can make his crossbow actually like full auto. A lot of projectiles. There's actually some crafting for that with the gems, and then also a lot of his nodes in his ascension tree for his ascension for witch hunter. Like he can do the judge, jury, and executioner. I think that's your best one. That's going to be strong for bosses. Instant 30% damage on bosses. So that's pretty incredible.
First boss that you fight here is the Devourer. It's within these the tunnels. And you can kind of see the experience reloading your different magazines over and over again.
So he's not even in his ascension yet, so.
So that was like a couple minute time skip, and you can see he's not dead yet. This is literally what I did. I was just like, this ain't for me. I'm out.
Yeah, he's not giving it a chance.
I did see gameplay of both Havoc and
See, that's the problem is a lot of people, they play the beginning of a character and they're like, oh, this is too slow, sluggish, oh, terrible. But then you actually get into the ascendancy of the character and do the Witch Hunter, and then you'll start to really see it look very good, very quick. You know, this was just his first impression of the mercenary at the beginning. He wanted something obviously more damage, faster, right off the start of the game.
Be playing
gonna miss out on good builds that way.
They stuck to it and they found combinations of it, and Big Ducks too. All three of them played mercenary, and they all had a good time with it. But you know, that's just what you're going to experience. Anyway, Sork. I'm like I said, I'm a mage, Sork, wizard, whatever you want to do. You know, elemental, temporal magic. That's my thing. Arcane magic. It's always my favorite class in every game. And oh yeah, wait for this one. Anyway. The first time that I played Path of Exile 2 at ExileCon, Sork was so poorly balanced and so underpowered. Actually, at least the first and second, if not third time, Sork always felt really bad. And that was basically my metric for, am I going to like this game? Like, can they do a magic caster properly? Well, this happened. Right off the beach, the very first boss that I killed gave me a +2 level of cold spell skill gems, 47% increased cold damage, and level 2 freezing shards right here. Yeah, you'll just see the difference between the mercenary and this. Now, kind of a concern that I have is the reliance on gear here, because I can't actually attribute how strong I felt in this playtest versus the last one on Sork. I can't separate it too much because I didn't have this crazy gear when I was doing the previous playtest. But I can tell you, if you get good gear, at least on a Sork, if you get a good staff, things will feel really good. So yeah, this is just watch his life bar.
I need more time. Not yet.
Right off the start, the Sork is very strong. Look at that.
Did a little spin of joy, had a little fun there, and yeah, that's just with that starting staff, that is the difference in power there.
That's crazy.
When that happened and I saw how strong I was just like, okay, I'm feeling it. I'm kind of seeing it here. And this is the
look at that. This just was with a starting staff. Not even a good staff.
Wasn't
anything.
A fluke.
So the Stormweaver could be a very fun build.
Yeah,
for the ascendancy there.
I was very excited. I was very encouraged. I want to call just special attention just how much detail there is to like the physics effects of all the shattering. I'll turn up the audio during some of the fighting a little bit later on. Just the freezing shards going through the flame wall, seeing them lit up and all that, igniting the monsters. The effects are like almost a little too subtle, but it adds a lot of style to it. And I think it's really nice instead of like the Path of Exile 1, like insane flashiness. So yeah, they added a lot of new support gems, and I think that this is really going to be what differentiates Path of Exile 2. As the thing about support gems in Path of Exile 1 is they very often trend, or are picked at least, towards the more, what gives me more damage, right? Like we have some that are a little bit more utility focused. You can do something like Fortify, where you kind of have like a hybrid offense and defense, or you have something like Inspiration, where maybe you're kind of mitigating some mana cost. There are some like interesting upsides in addition to damage, but a lot of the time You're just saying, how do I take the highest damage support gems that I can while not taking too many downsides or getting as much, a little side utility in addition to that. That's what we see a lot of the time in Path of Exile 1. And kind of a cool thing, actually not kind of a cool thing, I think one of the most interesting things about Path of Exile 2, and we're going to see how this plays out, is the forced single support gem. So for example, faster casting right here. If I take a faster casting, I can only have one of those on one of my skills. And because of this, I have to be very intentional in what I use that for. I really don't think it's going to feel like generator spender. It's not going to be like a Diablo 4 snooze fest. It's not generator spender. It's utility, single target, multi-target, utility mobility. And that's like the way that you want to think about it. So I end up using quite a few different skills in my damage rotation. It's going to be more about evaluating the threat and the positioning and the way that everything's happening. And that's how I'm going to be using my different skills dynamically in combat. And for example, Fortress right here. This is one of the cool support gems that it actually makes your flame wall summon, or anything else like ice wall as well, summon in a circle. So you can use this to encircle enemies, encircle yourself, encircle an ally, and then, like, we'll see this later on when I'm playing with MP, I am putting this around the monsters, and then MP is shooting as a mercenary through my flame wall and then boosting his shots. And there's a lot of interesting additional utility that you can get here through these support gems, instead of just, oh, I'm going to put elemental focus and control destruction on every single skill gem. Just to, even if you're using multiple damaging skills, you'd end up using, you'd use similar support gems. Instead, you have to be very intentional and thoughtful.
I think also if, you're running with a group of people, maybe you got a 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people in a party. If you have at least one Sork, I think that's going to be very beneficial, like when you're trying to stack up the damage. If you have like the flame wall, you can just put basically like a ring around the boss, and then it just will multiply the damage. Stacking more damage into it as you shoot through the, say you're a mercenary, you shoot through the flame wall. It's going to give you
about how you're
basically fire arrows that go through it, and then you're going to stack more damage as well. So I think there's going to be a lot of cool combos when you're working together with other classes. You're going to see the benefits.
You're picking your support
in that sense, so
for your
pretty
different utility skills. And at least the way that this played out until, like, I've only gotten to the end of Act 2 so far in the playtest, but the way that it's played out, at least in this playtest, was I had a lot of fun playing around with the different support gems. As always, how it works out in an end game, we'll see. Really, really cool thing. So freeze in this game is incredibly, again, everything through the context of only playing through the first 2 acts, but freeze in this game is incredibly powerful, as you've already seen. It works on bosses. You can build up freeze on them. And then there's a lot of stuff building around shattering frozen monsters. Just having something to freeze monsters. It doesn't have to be like a builder, right? It's not resource generation. Because mana, honestly, was basically never an issue for me. That was not a problem whatsoever. It's really just about what utility am I trying to navigate or utilize as I'm doing some combat. Things like glaciation right here were actually very interesting. So this one's really cool. Hey, free chilled ground whenever you freeze an enemy. So, again, additional utility that on your different skills, like drop a frost bomb and have that doing some additional utility right here. That's unique that I got. When you block an enemy, you permanently intimidate them. Not for my build. This is just showing me selling some different things. I'm just trying out, like, hey, what do I sell? What, demonstrating what I get for different currency for the disenchanting. And I'm not control clicking.
I'm honestly torn for my character that I'm going to start the season with. I'm torn between probably a monk invoker or a storm weaver for myself, sorceress. So those I'm still looking at to see if they're going to give us any more information right before early access, but I think those are going to be the two that I'm going to choose. Not sure which one yet. I'm kind of leaning more towards sorceress, just for how well you can work with other parties, and all the buffs and the cool elemental skills that you can, put the flame shield up, and then you can basically use like your lightning elemental and shoot through it and through the flame wall, and then basically it casts it to be like a flame lightning bolt, which is pretty cool, and it can ricochet off of walls and everything. So then it does like large AoE damage, which is pretty cool. There's going to be a lot of customization, I think, with the Stormweaver as far as dealing with all the different elements. Be kind of cool to test out.
All right, so I did not mouse over all of these. You can see the scroll bar. There are a lot of support.
Look at all these
gems,
effects,
and a good chunk of these say coming soon as well. There are so many. There's going to be a lot of differentiation and potential for.
So this is where you're going to do like all your different customizations to different builds. Like for example, being a Stormweaver. Look at all this. Like you have area of effect, added lightning damage. Like it's basically like endless. You can chain. Obviously, chain lightning would be pretty cool. You got bloodlust, bleed chance. You can go like a bleed build. Elemental army. That's kind of cool. Not sure exactly what that does. Maybe it buffs up any other players that are playing with you, or it, maybe they're minions. I'm not sure. Be kind of interesting to see. But a lot of customization. Not sure what this corrupting cry will be as well. A lot of cool stuff you can choose from than just having the basic what they show you.
One of my favorite things in Path of Exile 1 has always been customize your build for yourself. Like, hey, people ask me, hey, should I use Steel Skin on automation or cast some damage taken? Even little things like that, you can customize them in a way that fits your playstyle. All right, like if you're in hardcore and you got to play really intentionally and slowly around your cooldowns, cast some damage taken, or even manually casting it is the play. If you're in softcore and you're running 1 billion miles an hour, automation for your Steel Skin could be fine. Like it's not a bad choice, but it could be fine. And I think that type of decision making, and like there's a lot of conversation about like, from the hardcore solo self-found racing perspective, like this is always the right play. But there are, inefficient methods of play that could be, turn your brain off even more and you get your Netflix on. And I think that you can customize your builds in Path of Exile 2. They're giving you more tools to do this. This is a new skill called Ember Fusillade. Unfortunately, I was with my gearing, I was like really pushed into cold skills, but I kind of wish I went into fire because some of these fire skills they're beautiful and really cool. I'll turn it up a little bit for you.
That's pretty cool. Kind of like little orbs that hover around you and then shoot out in projectiles to create them.
But as you can see, my cold is just so strong.
Yeah, I think cold damage is going to be the way to go on launch. You're starting Stormweaver. Cold damage.
Walking around and self-casting Ice Nova, you're going to see a lot of that.
Yeah, it's nuts.
It just ended up being the strongest tool, unfortunately, for me a lot of time.
Good AoE.
Just showing how strong I am. This is about halfway through Act 1.
Let me teach you the power of the Eternals, Maracas fiend.
Well, yeah, like the anime, I don't know. This is clearly a fidelity upgrade, a huge fidelity upgrade over Path of Exile 1.
To me, Draven.
Freeze is so strong. So you can see in the upper left corner, building up the freeze. See those debuffs right there. We also now have the damage numbers. I can go back a little bit. You can see the damage numbers up here. You can see their weaknesses and strengths.
Yeah, that's your
right
weaknesses
here.
always in the bottom right.
And then the damage numbers, just like Dark Souls. Which is pretty cool.
Take your necromancy to the grave where it belongs.
Here's me kind of mousing over a couple things in the passive tree. Didn't see anything crazy. I didn't explore everything in the passive tree. I didn't have a ton of time. I wanted to I was balancing playing the game, chatting with Octavian and Jonathan, chatting with the other streamers, and God, I wish I could have played more. I could have explored more, but I wanted to do a little bit of everything while I was there. Yeah, this one is really cool.
Frozen Vortex.
When you shatter an enemy, 30% of the overkill damage is done per second. It lasts 3 seconds, so you basically get 90% of the overkill damage that you do as damage over 3 seconds. Total.
Awesome. Player 120%.
Cool. I don't think I was doing
good
that
AoE
much.
cold.
So the cool thing with Cold Snap, rather. So Cold Snap is a skill that shatters. So kind of like the rotation that you can do here is I end at Frostbolt, so you can do Ice Nova. You can cast your Ice Nova on Frostbolt by default. I just found my Frostbolt was going too fast, like casting too many skills, just that got a little bit too much. But what I ended up doing was dropping Frostbomb when necessary, casting Ice Nova, freezing, and then Cold Snap will shatter a frozen enemy for damage. And then you can link that with Frozen Vortex, so that shatter overkill damage will then put like a nice strong vortex on the ground.
If you're going Stormweaver,
Ended up being a pretty cool combo.
Frostbomb, Cold
Unleash
Snap,
it.
and Ice Nova, and then Frozen Vortex. Those 4 are going to be very strong.
This is about the same as it was in POE1. This is to demonstrate a little bit more. So, Frostbomb on the ground, casting Ice Nova, and then Cold Snap to shatter them.
That
and showing
easy.
how dangerous zones can be really quickly.
And your mana seems to stand, you know, your spirit.
You do have to be pretty
Or sorry, not your spirit. Your mana seems to regenerate pretty
forward.
quick. And it sustains.
There we go. Here's Veracaf.
Doesn't deplete
AKA
very
Candlemass,
quick.
I guess. Same monster from POE1 with a different name.
I don't know. Stormweaver looks pretty good. I mean, it's going to be an S
as you
tier,
can see,
like
my
I said, for
damage
sure.
is not as much. I believe I
And,
still have the same stat from the beach.
Again,
So, with all
cold
that
damage
said,
is going to be
it's
very
just that
strong
same
for
stat, no
Stormweaver.
additional
That'll probably be the
damage items or
strongest.
anything. And this is probably about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through Act 1. Probably 3/4. I think this is almost the last zone.
It seems corruption takes on many forms.
All right, so I didn't want to like go. This boss fight takes a little bit. This is the final boss of Act 1. Got an Exalted Orb.
I'm carrying an
Show
array.
the new item that I got. I finally did upgrade my staff. Level 5 freezing shards. I actually spent, I edited this. I spent a lot of time, like a solid 2 minutes or so, 2 to 3 minutes,
Oh,
trying to
2
compare the
minutes.
damage numbers
It's not that-
between all my different
Jeez.
skills. So the interesting thing here is I lose the +2 cold skill
Makes it sound
gems,
like you spent
and I
half
gain
hour, an hour
level
on it.
5 freezing shards as well as some freeze buildup, which is nice. I actually
So,
end up taking
freeze
this.
on your staff
But
is going to
you
be
can see
very
you
good.
have your DPS numbers right here.
You're going
which
for
are,
cold damage build.
so I was originally looking down in the lower right corner in POE1, but these tooltips, I hope they build these out a little bit. I think they're trying to simplify it, but when you mouse over your skills in the lower right corner, it shows nothing. It just says the name. There's no data whatsoever. I think they want everything to kind of be in this skill gems, like kind of kept over in the corner here in the skill gems panel. And there's a rough DPS estimate. Again, because you're comboing so many things, it's not going to be accurate whatsoever. But you can see these DPS numbers changing as I'm changing my weapons around. And I keep trying to mouse over here to like see if anything changes, but it actually, the tooltip doesn't change when you change your items. I think that's just the base gem tooltip. So here's, I believe, the first boss fight in Act 2. There's my Frostbolts flying in, trying to clear some of the ads. This fight ends up taking a while. So yeah, this is, you know, if we're going to talk about some of the cons, at least for the Sorceress gameplay, there wasn't that much I can do. If we think about the tools that I have, and I went into all of the cast speed that I could. I had faster casting. I took all of the cast
Yeah,
speed.
but you don't even have your
faster free.
Ascension unlocked yet.
Any gear.
That's just base.
gave
That's
me
just a base
any,
character.
Any cast speed, I would take it.
No skills into
So the problem with
Ascension.
this fight is if you go above this line up here, there's a bunch of hyenas standing on a cliff that will just shoot arrows at you. So you're stuck in this little triangular arena. You really can't go up here. And periodically, the boss will just, if you walk away from him, he'll do multiple slams. He'll do a charge attack at you. Like his scariest, I guess I'm spoiling the boss fight sorry, so spoilers if you don't want to know how this boss fight works. At the beginning of Act 2. But if you get too far away from him, he'll do a charge attack at you, or he'll do really big slams. And I actually don't have
Spoiler
any
alert, but
tools
at least it
that
gives
give
you an
me
idea.
very good damage
Going
at
into it, have a little bit of a
like, I can
tactic.
cast Frostbolt with the Ice Nova and Frostbolt, but it's not like POE1 you know, later on, maybe if I get Unleash and Spell Echo or whatever, like maybe I can make this work. But if you cast 1 Frostbolt and then maybe I can get 2 Ice Novas and then 1 Frostbolt and 2 Ice Novas, I'd rather just cast 3 Ice Novas, right? Or even like 3.5, because the Frostbolt had a slow cast speed. Because of that cadence, it was actually way better for me to just stay close to him. Thing is, the way the fight works is I can't walk up here, like I said. And if I walk away from him, he'll do like really scary range stuff. And I'm kind of stuck in slow cast animations. And it's actually easier to just, you know, roll around him when you're really close. Also, he periodically spawns ads. And because the ads are not nonstop, but pretty frequent, I'm forced to almost nonstop just spam my Ice Nova. And this was a little bit of a concern. Like 100% could be build or skill issue. But
I was going to let you guys know, anybody in the channel here, we are doing a giveaway for an early access key of POE2, Pathfix L2. This Saturday, November 30th at 2 p.m. Eastern time. If you want to tune into the channel, you can follow, and then you just put in ! Enter, and then you'll be entered into the giveaway. And then we'll probably do another one on game launch. So that'll be December 6th at 2 p.m. Eastern. That's when the servers will go online, 2 p.m. Eastern. December 6th, as long as everything goes well and we can actually get into the game. Fingers crossed.
I kind of felt a little pigeonholed into just, I didn't hate it, but I guess I cut this out because I didn't want to spoil the whole fight. But yeah, that's basically what the fight was. I just wanted to point that out. Conk effect. Oh yeah, I got Solar Orb, which is just a cool, you put a fire orb on the ground. It's very pretty and it does burning damage. Just kind of mousing over some of the support gems here. You can see a couple more support gems that we haven't seen yet. Move the camera, you can see a little bit more. So yeah, just leaving this for anyone
so
that
much.
Wants to,
like, it's crazy. Look at this.
Comb through the video and just.
This is like unclicking the showing recommended gems. So if you click recommended gems, it's just going to show you like the basic gems that they suggest you use based off of the class. If you unclick that, then it's going to open up more broad support gems to choose different skills. So that will give you more customization to your build. It's going to be a lot of basically a lot of changes that you can do and create your own custom build with custom class with the support gems there. So that's kind of cool to have different builds that maybe, you know, it's a good chance nobody will have. I like seeing different, trying different things. But if you just want to stay with the recommended gems, just leave that on, and it's more safe that way anyways, to stick with a good build that is generally going to be there. That's why they have that feature.
See everything I mouse over, go for it. So I'm going to let the rest of this play out. You can just watch some of the gameplay here as I finish up playing with Empy. Thanks for everything over the past few years. It's been really cool going through all of the discoveries and sharing cool
So you have a mercenary and then Sork playing together. I think that's going to be a really good combo. If you have a mercenary with you and you're a Sork or an Infernalist. Just really cool combos. They work well together. Got big damage, and the Sorks basically, you know, doing good damage as well, but using elements to help increase mercenaries' attacks. Basically, helps him. It buffs his attacks, his projectiles.
Flesh and bones.
He he uses his flame wall. And it goes around the boss. It's pretty cool. So as he shoots into the flame wall, the mercenary, his crossbows are actually becoming inflamed. It's pretty cool.
I can't do that yet.
Breathe it in.
Look at that, they're just melting them. This is a Stormweaver and a mercenary. So a sorceress and a mercenary working together. Basically just deleted that boss. That's basically a good demonstration on those two classes working together. The using the flame wall. You basically just put it around the boss like a big flame wall in a circle that surrounds the boss, and then the mercenary was just shooting his crossbows through the flame wall, and then engulfing them into basically flaming crossbows and doing more damage. It's pretty cool. We did our tier list. Ended up saying here I'll kind of go right back into the tier list very quick. You guys have an idea if you're starting the season and you're not sure what you want to pick. This just gives you a general idea.
Strong to me. The judge, jury, and execution node, it says first chunk enemies, but when they showcased it, Jonathan specifically said up to 30%. So this is probably a situation where it ranges from like 10 to 30% of the boss's initial HP pool. Something like that, which would mean this is a damage multiplier of somewhere in the range of 20 to... This
We'll start here.
Maybe this... Have I mentioned I'm a hater for Warcries and Totem? Okay, I like Warcries okay, which start.
I'll say
maybe later.
This guy's going to be an S tier, the Mercenary Witch Hunter. You got the Judge, Jury, and Executioner that does 30% damage against bosses on your first shot. So that's going to be a broken mechanic. Basically, being able to do that, and we don't even know what the other nodes are. Like, again, this one could be more. Number 2 is your, if you're going up here in your Ascension tree for the Witch Hunter on the Mercenary, this first one here, that will be the big one that does, takes a big chunk out of bosses, 30%, 20 to 30. And then as we go up here, we don't know what these other nodes are. That could be more of a, maybe more scaling. It could be maybe on the tail end of the boss, you'd take another 20 to 30% off on the last shot to kill the boss. We don't know. But this is an S tier. That's what ended up getting.
Later on with gearing, you could make the juggling guy work better and respect to him. But that's my thoughts right now. Mercenary Witch Hunter seems very good. I'm going to say, I'll give you guys a little ranking for all these ascendancies as I go through them, is how good I think they're going to be, and we'll see what they actually are on League Star. I think Mercenary is going to be an S tier in terms of that class. It seems very good. A lot of generic damage, AoE explosions, can't go wrong there. This class is a totem build, so it instantly gets F tier because I'm a hater. Also,
I'd be a B tier.
Build as far as
he just doesn't like totems.
Hater. Have I mentioned I'm a hater for Warcries and Totem? Okay, I like Warcries okay-ish, but I'm a hater for
the totem kind of sucks.
This will probably be good if you're a totem player. Maybe it's a B.
It was just like a Warcry.
Slam build seems like it'll be good. This will be a solid A tier. I think it'll just be reliable. Strong slams, meaty slams, stun the enemy, beat enemy up with big hammer. That's what we like. Sorcerer Stormweaver. I think for Elemental Caster, this is probably going to be the way to go. I think this is going to be
an S tier.
For spell builds. This is probably
this is what I'm going.
Spellcaster you can do out of all the
Stormweaver.
options. Say this is an S tier.
I'm pretty sold on that. I think it's going to be an amazing build.
I think this is going to be bad. I have no faith in the concoction skills actually being good. Poison seems like it. Oh, it really just depends how good poison is. If poison's good, Pathfinder's good. If poison's bad, I don't know if anything could save Pathfinder, because the movement speed stuff, the getting immune to slows things, I mean, that stuff might end up feeling decent, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to be worth it. I'm a little bit skeptical of Pathfinder. Mercenary, Gemini Legionnaire, I think this is going to be a ascendancy that scales with gear type of thing, which means it's going to be bad on League Start. Like on League Start, it's going to be maybe a D choice, but on late game, it might be an A choice, might be an S choice, but early game, it seems like a risk, in my opinion. Monk Invoker, this seems like it'll just be a solid elemental damage build. If you can scale the cast speed on this skill, I think it's going to be an S tier, very strong build. If you can't scale the cast time, and this is hard to pull off in the middle of a boss fight, then I think it's probably going to be more of a glass cannon situation. So this node, I think, is a big contingent factor on whether or not you can make this character tanky or not. We'll see how that goes. Which, Infernalist, this is what I'm going to start. It's definitely going to be S tier. I'm not coping. It's definitely not going to be a minion build. There's going to be other stuff that's
going to be very strong
for a spellcaster ES build. I'm 100% confident. I'm definitely not going to.
Again, I think a lot of people that know PoE, they're going to go this build. Like I'm seeing a lot of people that have put thousands of hours into Path of Exile 1. They seen this build and this Ascension, and they were like, okay, sold, done. Because your Hellhound is going to take a lot of damage for you before it actually inflicts damage on yourself. You're going to go into the demon form, and your health is going to kind of slowly tick down. But the more it ticks down, you're going to like do insane damage. So maybe there'll be other, we don't even know what these nodes are. That could be, multipliers for it. Something to do with demon form. Maybe you can stay in it longer. It takes away less health. It's hard to say, but I see a lot of big content creators going this route. So I think that's it just piqued a lot of curiosity what a lot of the other nodes are going to be to what we already know, which is already very strong. So this one's going to be an S tier for sure.
End up
going to be a good build.
Choice. Ranger Deadeye. It's probably going to be very good. In terms of like, you're going to get to a point where you have a good bow, you shoot the enemy first. Even if you are used to the 6 portal defense, I think there's going to be situations where you can still get away with being a high damage dealer that shoots enemies from far away and just speed map clears. I think this will probably be strong in PoE1 in terms of like a trade league environment where it's valuable to get through maps faster. And this character just is one of the only ascendancies that clearly has a speed enhancement that's very strong. Sorceress, Chronomancer. I want this to be good so badly. It looks so cool. The artwork looks cool. I am gonna cope that this is gonna it's probably gonna be bad. I think I'm gonna say C. I'm gonna say C.
I want it to be good, but it's gonna be bad.
The time snap thing with cooldowns could be really strong, but I don't know. It really is a contingent on what the other nodes are. You need stuff that you can scale, and there's not a lot, or at least I believe you need stuff that you can.
I think if like you have somebody you're running with that is this build, it's going to be very beneficial because you can just like freeze time, and then you can, give everybody like you get your skills back, like your mana and your health back, your skill cooldown, everything's back. I just don't know if it's going to get like kind of monotonous. And how strong it's really going to be, we don't know.
Scale, and there's not a lot of stuff that scales outside of this node about getting basically a second shot at a cooldown. So I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical of that one. This I think is going to be bait early on until you get some gear to benefit, and then it could scale a lot better. I wouldn't want to league start this. I'd say maybe it's a D choice to start with, and I think Acolyte Chola, I think this is an F choice. I think I have no faith in this one. All right, that's my quick and dirty opinion of the ascendancies and the rundown of what I think of each of the ascendancy nodes. So I think this is
funny thing is, he gave this one such a bad ranking, but I already know like a lot of people got very curious with this one, the Chayula, but I think Invoker is going to be better for a Monk. I just think what people saw during gameplay footage of it looked very cool, but I think it's going to be very squishy. Unless if there's something else we don't know with one of these nodes that could help with that. It's going to be fast. It's going to do a lot of AoE. It's going to be good for like running breaches. I think you'll be able to clear very quick. So it's going to be good for that because there you go. It's skills grant grant skills into the breach. So it's going to be very good in breaches. But besides that, I don't know. You're just kind of running by yourself. I don't know how great it's going to be against bosses. You're going to be able to, you're just going to get destroyed, or you're going to be able to withstand the damage, because Path of Exile, if you're coming from Diablo, it is all about defense, with, capping your resistances to the elements. You want to go over the cap a little bit, because a lot of the bosses are going to have kind of like a debuff towards your element, whatever element it is. So we'll scale down a bit, but damage isn't going to be that demanding. You're not going to be able to scale like you do in Diablo. It's definitely very important to spec and make sure you have a lot of defense on your class, whatever class you choose going into this game. So that's a bit of a breakdown. We briefly went through a lot of the classes, given it our ranks. I gave my own personal rankings. It was very similar to Captain Lance's. Make sure you check him out. He's a very smart man. He knows a lot of, he's been playing countless hours into Path of Exile 1, and he'll be, streaming along through Path of Exile 2. He's running an Infernalist, from what I gathered. So we'll see on closer to release day if they give us any more leaks or information on these other classes with more of the nodes. That's going to be it for me today. I will be on later this evening. I'll try to go on and stream some more, get some more information around 8 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to do a giveaway this Saturday, November 30th. So tune into this channel. Follow, please, if you can. Would appreciate it. We'll start the giveaway for the early access key to Path of Exile 2 at 1 p.m. Eastern time, and wrap it up and announce the winner at 2 p.m. Eastern. So thank you guys again for tuning into the channel. I'll be back on later tonight, this evening, 8 p.m. Eastern, and we'll get some more nitty-gritty information on Path of Exile 2. So until then, take care. Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah. Unknown Brain. Marvin Divine. I'm saying bye to all the lies and all the times you cried, saying that I wasn't right, yet I was right by your side. You manipulator, playing games, your friends commentators, and I don't know what you say about our private conversations, but it's got them hating. Thanks to all the rumors you be claiming, it's cool, I'm done with you, so they can throw you a celebration. You gon' hate it when you see me with somebody living better. I'm trying to tell you that me just doing me gon' have you jealous.
I know that I gotta stay away from all your games, and I know that I found somebody else to love me one day. You'll realize the grass ain't greener on the other side. No, you did me dirty for the last time, so now I gotta say goodbye.
Yeah, my life is lovely now, I'm focused on me. You said you were about to die, I guess the car is on E. But see, I ain't even tripping, cause I just chose to believe that somebody gon' come around and give me just what I need. I don't wanna see you finding, see you looking down and out. Coming to me crying, saying you miss having me around. Gave you chances and you blew it, you so easily influenced. All the times you told me beat it, now you gotta face